What you're doing. I mean, what you're doing is brilliant work. Alrighty. Welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Conscious Debriefing podcast. It is now just gone 2 o'clock, just after 2 o'clock on this lovely Saturday afternoon, the 13th of March 2021. A few more days' time, we'll be 365 days on this lockdown. As motivating that sounds, it's not really, it's more sarcasm because we are stuck in this lockdown. Although there is a bit of relief, the economy is slowly but surely trying to open, but just not enough. More and more people losing jobs out there, and I think that is the reason why I'm having this podcast tonight with Unathi. I want to dig in and ask her some questions about the economy, and more importantly, how can we fix capitalism, make capitalism work again. Although we have, and Unathi she's a capitalist herself, is a small business owner, and she likes to push in and get people to understand that capitalism can work. And in numerous of my podcasts, I've also said capitalism still can work. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the podcast and tackle those questions to Unathi. Unathi, welcome. Welcome to the Conscious Debriefing podcast. How are you, my lady?
Thank you. I'm good, thank you. It's still nice and warm in this part of the world.
And it is,
yeah.
Winter's coming soon, yeah.
Oh, actually, on Wednesday we had rain for the whole day.
That's right.
It was really lovely.
Yeah, that's right.
It was really lovely to have all that rain.
Well, where I am at the moment in front of Bell Park, we've had so much rain these last few weeks, and the Vol Dam is at the moment sitting on 100% capacity, which is great. Great.
That is great news.
Our farmers need that rain.
Absolutely.
To feed the nation.
I have a small, yes, absolutely. And I have a small garden at home, and not the easiest part to grow anything because of the sandy soil, but it's doable. I mean, I've been doing it for quite a while now, so we're always happy to see the rain.
100%. Unathi, quick for the listeners out there and the viewers out there, a quick little intro, who you are, what you're about.
Okay, I'm Unathi Kwaza from Khayelitsha in Cape Town. I run a small business from home. I studied food technology back in the day, and graduated and started working in the food industry. But I didn't really like the work so much, and so I decided to go my way. And I started a small business in direct sales and marketing. I didn't study business, but I suppose because there was always someone selling, running their small thing at home, from my grandmother, and I hear from her father as well. So there was always someone doing it. So maybe that's where I got it from.
Yes.
It also helped. It also helped that I did mathematics up to tertiary level. So
yes.
I mean, I'm not totally blind to numbers.
And it's important to know that you're a capitalist.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
I'm a free marketer.
Yes.
I love freedom. I love the rights to property rights.
Magic to my ears.
Absolutely. And it's, I mean, because you're South African, you know that we are now facing the threat to property rights in this country.
Yeah.
And it seems our leaders, those in power, think that what happened in Zimbabwe or Venezuela could never happen to South Africa.
Yes.
They are totally wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm an advocate for property rights and the respect for individual liberty.
Yeah. Unathi, before we get into the questions, I just got 4 questions for you. I just want to, for my viewers out there, express our deepest condolences to King Goodwill, to him and his family, and of
Absolutely.
course to the nation. Of course.
Absolutely. Yes. Unfortunately, we got the news about 2 days ago that the king has passed.
Yes.
And he had not been well for a little while now. And yeah, condolences to his family. And I know that KwaZulu-Natal without him and the country at large won't be the same.
Yes.
Condolences to his family.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's get into it. Unathi, I know everyone's talking about COVID, and it will never seem to stop, I suppose. So my first question is your thoughts on this vaccine rollout. What do you think? What do you think on the vaccine rollout?
I think
yeah.
Sorry. I think the first mistake that government did was to centralize the whole distribution of vaccine and to close the space of competition. I mean, we know how much they have failed in delivering anything. They can't deliver water. They can't deliver proper services in public health care. They can't deliver. I mean, look at the state of the SOEs that are guzzling our taxes.
100%.
So for government to take a risk with our lives, basically, because that's what it is. When government takes a choice away from us as consumers and citizens of health, then it means that we have to rely on a state that can't supply water to millions of other South Africans.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, I'm glad that AfriForum and Solidarity took them to court to challenge. Obviously, now they're saying that no, we never said private sector cannot get involved, but it's a lie. I mean, luckily we have videos and where health minister has said it clearly that private sector is not going to be part of it, and only government is going to be allowed. So anytime that freedoms, as important as your right to health care,
of course,
anytime that is put at risk, it means that anything government doesn't care that your life and my life can depend on this. Of course, I mean, I've said several times on Twitter that I'm not going to get a vaccine, and but I stand for people's rights. Those who want to have it, they must have it. And private sector is there.
Yeah,
private sector is there to do the job of. I mean, they do a job well. That's why there's such a high demand on private healthcare in this country. So they are ready for it to do the job, and but they can do it if government doesn't stand in their way of doing business.
Yeah.
But you know how it is with government. They're always looking for control everywhere they can get it, and it's hard for them to let it go.
My main concern is the side effects. Okay, I have a friend of mine that lives in the UK, and she took the vaccine like 3 days ago, and she said her arm felt very heavy, and then she started throwing up, and she felt fluish and that. So it's like any flu shot that we get. I mean, we know from previous experience, if you get a flu shot in it, there is going to be some side effects. You are going to get so sick. I haven't really spoken to her. I need to phone her today and ask her how she's feeling. But I saw she has been commenting on Facebook, so I think she's doing all right. She should be fine. But there is side effects. And I think it's important to know the side effects are normal. But I'm with you on that one. I don't want to take the vaccine. I don't. With all the
and for us in South Africa, for us in South Africa, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, we've been told that it's still on trial basis. And I mean, whatever side effects you get, they're still learning. It's not really out there. So people have a right to be concerned and to be worried that
they do.
Maybe why didn't they buy something that's foolproof? I don't know why. And so that's why I'm saying to you, the moment you take out competition, because with competition, it gives you more access to everything else that is available out there in the world.
Yes.
So if you're just given one thing, and so it's sort of a gamble now with your life.
Yes.
You don't know much about it because it's still on trial basis. But I don't know if private sector, now that AfriForum has and government have cleared it that private sector can come in. I don't know if they have started yet, but I think I didn't read the article, but I think I saw a headline saying that they can do it, but they're still reluctant to do it.
Yeah.
I suspect it has something to do with government policies. You know, I mean, we've seen it with the tourism minister. She has blatantly racialized the whole tourism sector and is busy dealing with quotas, race quotas, while the industry is bleeding jobs.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course.
So maybe it's the same case. Maybe it's the same case here. There's BE involved, obviously, unfortunately.
Yes.
And I suspect, private people are in business to make money. And there's nothing shameful about that. Otherwise, there's no point in it. So if there's nothing in it for you as business, why would you go to lengths to try and source a vaccine that is available out there? So I just hope that soon they will clear things up for and give the green lights to private sector.
Of course, I mean, look what's been happening on the black market these last few months with ivermectin. You've heard of ivermectin?
Yes.
It started at to be 10 Rand a pill, and now if you buy a pill, it's going to cost you 150 Rand, maybe even 200 Rand, who knows. The liquid ivermectin, now it's what, 1,500 or 1,600 just for 500 mils. The black market is booming on it. It's booming. And it seems to be working. Although there isn't human trials on it yet.
Look, it's human nature to try to survive whatever
yes, it is,
you go through. So if some doctors believe that I don't know, what is the other one, hydro something the one that the hydro something.
The one that
I don't know,
that Trump has been talking about. It's a long word.
Yes. I mean, that one, there's I don't know if you know Candace Owens in the US. She had an interview with one doctor who's originally from, I think it's Cameroon here in Africa. So she was saying that when she started, before President Trump talked about this drug, she had been using it because it's an old drug that they have used. Her parents used to give them, like, I think every year to prevent malaria. So it's not like it's going to kill anyone. So when this coronavirus COVID started, that's what she was giving to her patients successfully. Of course, there was one or two of them that didn't recover for various reasons, like maybe someone was suffering from diabetes and all that. But now, when politics entered the picture, she could no longer get it. People could no longer get it directly from their shops, like the counters at the shops. They needed a subscription because politics entered, and we know that how they were feeling about President Trump. And mainstream media obviously got involved to try and make this drug, like this dangerous thing that no one should do. So obviously the black market will thrive because every time government stands in the way of business, obviously they're closing doors for legitimate businesses and opening doors for the black market. We saw it with the banning of tobacco. Tobacco sales.
We did,
We saw it with the banning of liquor. It happens naturally, and you'll hear a competition commission saying that they want to investigate why prices have gone up. They don't have the knowledge to actually recognize the fact that it's actually government that drives those things at times. And of course, it's a matter of supply and demand. But now, whenever you tell people, no, you can't use this, then someone is going to use it, because
Of course.
if people feel that this one is going to work for me, then obviously they'll go for that, whether they can get it through the normal channels or through the black market. You can't stop people. You can't. Choice is inherent in all of us. So if you're taking away choice, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I've spoken to lots of people. I've done lots of research. Ivermectin is working. I know a personal friend of mine that is using it for the last month or so, and there's no side effects. She feels great. And also, AfriForum recently obtained a court order, for doctors to administrate with ivermectin. So yes, so if we don't want to take the vaccine, we will go there and take ivermectin. Of course, understood.
And you know what? Yeah, and it's not in the news much, the fact that contracting the coronavirus is not a death sentence, because most people recover from it.
That's the thing. You're right.
But you are not going to hear much about the recovery rate on mainstream media, because it doesn't fit the narrative. They want to scare you. They want to spread hysteria. They want to shut debate. They want to shut the rationality in debate. And now they will call you names like you are an anti-vaxxer just because you have questions, and you have a right to have questions, and those questions should be answered by those who know. And they have the audacity to call it science, and yet they don't want a scientist,
100%.
all scientists to have a say, because there's no one voice in science. There are people discovering different things. Things like we knew 50 years ago, 40 years ago. A lot has changed because time changes, and medicinal practices change as well. A lot of development happens in the medicine sector. So there's just never one voice in science.
Yes.
It's not science if it's like that. It's propaganda. If we are told, no, you can't listen to something else, you have to go through this way. So that's why I'm not ashamed to say that I've never really followed the lockdown rules. Luckily, I stay in a township, and we do not have Karens, so to speak, in townships. No one's going to call the police to tell them that Unathi is taking a walk when they're not. She's not supposed to take a walk. No one is going to scan her about their neighbor to the police and say that, oh, she's walking her dog.
Yes.
She's walking her dog. She's taking a walk with the family. Those kind of things, which are unfortunate. And those things are created by this hysteria that I was talking about. And people, if you're not wearing a mask in public, some people look at you funny. Of course, not here in Khayelitsha. I think in a way we showed ourselves to be more free than any other place in this country, and we didn't fall down from the sky and died just because we didn't wear our masks.
Exactly.
Just because we defied the lockdown rules. No, we didn't. We're still here, and I'm not saying that no one in Khayelitsha obviously contracted the disease. Yes, there are people who contracted it. There are people who lost their lives, but
yes,
don't take choice away from people.
True. Well, that comes to my next question. My next question is, was the lockdown unconstitutional?
Yeah.
Oh.
Definitely not. There's a reason why they declared a state of emergency in the beginning. It's to take away your right to question things. It's to take away your right to decide for yourself and your families. Because remember that as individuals, we belong to families before we are citizens, and before we are government things, so to speak. We belong to ourselves, we belong to our families, and we belong to our communities before anything else. So the state of emergency was meant to take away those rights, and now we became subjects of the government. Government has to think for us. Government has to decide for us. Has to decide if we take our kids to school or not, and which was unfortunate because as much as science was saying that young people are not really, children are not really that affected But because the propaganda was so strong that even though science says this about the children, but people and mainstream media and government ignored all that because the narrative has to be this, the one that they want. So obviously, there's no constitutional rights there, and think about also the fact that the president sent police and army to thousands of soldiers were sent to especially to townships to police black people because black people are so unruly. Black people can't think for themselves. Thank you to the ANC government. So even the mainstream media was so captured that they didn't make so much noise about the Collins causes of this world who were killed by the army. There were a number of people who were actually killed by police and the army, especially in the beginning stages of the lockdown. And the media, because it's so captured, they never really dwelt on that. And those people had constitutional rights. Those people had broken no crime, made no crime, and government decided that if you don't, think about that man. The story went that he was going to the shop to buy food for the baby, and
I remember
was
that.
met by the might of the state, which are the police. And think about someone who couldn't keep their coffee shop open, or just because government says so. Think about their livelihood. Under the constitution, we all have a right to work. We all have a right to make and earn a living. But that right was taken away by government. There's just so much. It's a pity, Jason, that big businesses especially didn't challenge a lot of these ridiculous lockdown rules that we saw under this government. And I have no doubt in my mind that the government would have been found wanting, because there's just so much that was wrong with their decisions. Remember that at first they used to tell us that cigarettes, smoking, there's a relation between smoking and contracting coronavirus, and there was none. And they started making up stories about alcohol. Oh, you can't control yourself when you have just a glass of wine.
Yes.
Or just consuming alcohol, and to treat people like we're not individuals. We can't think for ourselves. There's something terribly wrong about that. And it's unfortunate that a lot of businesses coyed and rolled over when the state was basically trampling upon their right to trade. People have a right to trade in this country, and they have licenses. So when the government decides today, politicians who, I get angry when I talk about this, because politicians at the end of the day didn't lose anything from this. It's us, the citizens.
Yes.
It's the private sector that has lost. It's people in the private sector that have lost jobs. They had to cut hours, and some had to take pay cuts. And people are just happy that they still have jobs. But we know over 2 million people lost jobs in, I think, the first quarter of last year. And so for politicians to decide for you that no, you can't trade because you work with alcohol, and we can't trust people who are drinking. It's just a prejudice against people who drink, and it's not right. It's just a pity that most people chose to give away their freedoms to government. And it was 21 days. It's over a year now, 365 days. And we're still talking about the lockdown, and it's shameful.
It is. Yeah, we're close to 365 days. It's worrisome. Look, the reason why I asked that question is, like, you explained it basically about the jobs in it. People that have lost jobs, their livelihood. It's just sad. I have a friend of mine that lives in Cape Town, and he runs, I won't say it's a taxi business. It's not a taxi business. He's got he had a Mercedes Benz, and he had a Kia, and he had 2 vans. So he was with Uber, and he also did a lot of tourism, where he drove people around that came from overseas, and he would tour them around Cape Town. He's lost that now. He's lost everything. And the man's in a flat, he's in a flat spin at the moment.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what to do.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's in Camps Bay yesterday. He was telling me that he had a guest house in Langeban, and he had to close it because there was no income coming in.
Yes.
I mean, Langeban is in the part of the Western Cape where it's beautiful and you expect tourists. That's why you would open a guest house in those areas. He had to close it. Luckily for him, he found a tenant, but it's not the same. Like to get one person who's going to rent your house for 2.5 years. Luckily for him, it's not the same as income that comes in like every week with new guests coming in. It's really tough, especially for small businesses. It's not when you run a small business, it's not easy to even afford lawyers. How are you going to challenge the might of the state? Because the state has endless supply of money. Actually, that's what they think.
The state has given out 350 rand grant, but with the current inflation, what do you do with 350 rand? Look at the stimulus packages.
I don't know.
Yeah, the stimulus packages.
You won't even.
The stimulus packages that you're getting overseas is much better than ours.
Absolutely. And even when you think about, we just learned this week as well from Stats SA that our GDP shrunk by 7%.
That's right.
And
yeah, that's right.
And that means and I think I was watching the morning slot this morning. Roman was saying that.
Yeah, Roman.
He was saying that the report said that it's going to take us many years to get to where we were in 2019.
Yeah.
In 2019, and things were not even good in 2019. So it means that it's going to take us decades maybe to get to a good standing for our economy. And it could change if I was talking to a friend just this afternoon. Things could change in this country if people started taking voting seriously. Just think about the fact that only about 9 million people voted for the ruling party in 2019 in national elections. And about 20 million people are sitting at home, not bothering to go and vote. And I don't know what we have to do, but we have to do something to get people to the voting stations.
And Unathi, that's my next question. Are we at war? And I don't mean war with guns. I mean economic war. And can capitalism still save us from this economic war?
Absolutely.
That is the $1 million question, and I believe it can.
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt in my mind that only capitalism will take us out of this quagmire. But when you have, think about the fact that our finance minister, from time to time, when he's having a good time, he'll tell us about this, having a state bank. A state bank would be a great idea. And obviously, it's not good. When you ask him, how is the post bank coming along? He's not going to tell you how are the other nationalized SOEs been, and he's not going to come back and respond to you because I suppose he doesn't feel the need to respond to people on Twitter. And it's unfortunate that we have communists in such high positions of power because they're so entrenched in their belief that the state must control everything, that it's going to take think about China and where China is today and compare that to where it was in the late 70s. It was in dire straits.
Scary.
They had to embrace, yes, they are still a communist nation, but when it comes to business, they had to embrace capitalism to break the chains of poverty.
Of course.
And, every day they manage to lift people out of poverty, which and in South Africa is the reverse. And we're seeing more and more people. Look at Khayelitsha. Just in the last 6 months, we've seen thousands and thousands of newly erected shacks in Khayelitsha. I'm talking about just one township in Cape Town. But I know it was happening with other townships, like you go to Gugulethu, you go to Nyanga, you go to Philippi. And because why? The Eastern Cape, for instance, has been run down so much that people don't see any other choice. It's better to come to the Western Cape and live in a shack and risk your life in a shack. Remember, these shacks, the way that they are built, it's whenever there's a fire, it means that a lot of shacks will be involved because they put one shack next to the other. They don't think of living spaces in between because they are in so much rush because they know that they're doing it illegally, and it's unfortunate.
But
And sadly, I mean, obviously, people have to live. I said to you earlier that it's in our human nature to want to survive. So if there's no chance for me in the Eastern Cape to survive, I have to move to, whether it's Gauteng, I have to move to KwaZulu-Natal if there are opportunities there. I have to move to the Western Cape because it's a matter of survival. It's a human instinct.
yeah,
Even if that means I'm going to have a shack that has been built on a wetland, even though the municipality is saying that it's dangerous to build on a wetland. It's not a good place to be in. But it's better than being in the Eastern Cape where there's absolutely no prospect of me getting a job or running a successful business. So it's better to put my life at risk and come here. So
it's true what you say.
Yeah, capitalism is it's. I mean, when you think about all the hurdles that government puts for business, it just means that when you talk about BEE, you talk about affirmative action, you talk about all this employment equity, you talk about national minimum wage. There's quite a lot of hurdles that government has put in the way of business,
But
and it's getting more difficult to run a business in this country.
all those things are not going to work if we don't get investments. Who's going to invest in South Africa at the moment?
And who's going to invest? I mean, look at the mining sector. When the mining companies when the mining companies decided not to fight and be against BEE, because every time everything starts with government policy, and they propose this in parliament. So if you as a mining company are going to be silent because you don't want to upset the big government and
or the unions. Or the unions.
The unions.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean government is union because of the tripartite alliance.
Yeah.
So if you're not gonna shout and I mean government in this country, business in this country is so they're sleeping basically, and they let government walk all over them, and yet they pay the most taxes in this country to keep this government alive, to keep the fed kids basically fed, and because what else are they doing without taxes? Look at the wage bill alone in this country. And what are all these people doing in government? Because you don't get any good service, whether you're sick, you want to go to a clinic, or you want to go to a hospital, you can't afford medical aid. You're supposed to get good healthcare in a state hospital because 100%. You pay taxes. But now you must pay taxes and still pay for medical aid.
Yeah.
And still pay for security because police don't know what they're doing. I mean, I can't think of any department in this country that is doing what they're supposed to do. No. Even SARS has been, unfortunately, has been messed up, and because of the ANC, because when they talk about the 9 wasted years, they forget that they kept Jacob Zuma in power for 9 years, and it was not us, the citizens, it was them. Every time in Parliament there was a vote of no confidence against Jacob Zuma.
How many times? Yeah,
stood out. I mean, several times.
And each time the cabinet gets changed.
Exactly. So it's people will blame Jacob Zuma for everything, but I think the blame should be put squarely at the door of Luthuli House.
Yeah, or the top 6.
Absolutely.
Look.
So yeah, but I haven't given up hope about this country. South Africa has amazing people, and luckily for us, I know people who only live on social media will think that things are so bad. That's why sometimes it's good to just switch off from social media and
Yeah.
take a walk around the community, take a walk to the shops and talk to people. I like starting conversations whenever I meet people, just to hear what people are talking about.
Yeah.
And I love every time there's a storm in a teacup on social media about, oh, this racism happened there.
Yes.
And I mean, the latest one is the one, the ridiculous one with Adam Habib. I don't know if you saw that. It's so ridiculous.
No, I
I just
didn't know.
laughed at it.
I
Oh,
try and
just
I pass those, because it's getting boring, man. There's no conclusion to it.
it is
It's a
it is boring.
scapegoat.
And
Yeah.
now they're campaigning. The woke people are campaigning for him to be dismissed from where he is working in London. And I mean, it's just so people will, I mean, even the media, the way they report, they will say that the country is in uproar. And like people, you go outside your house and look at the people in your street. Luckily for me, I'm in a township, so it's easy to have access to people. People are going about their lives. People don't care what is happening on social media, thankfully. And South Africans, most South Africans that I meet, irrespective of their race, are just going up on about their own lives. They're trying to live. It's difficult to live in this country because at times you're just afraid to walk on the street because you don't feel safe.
Yeah. True.
In this country. I mean, a country where 57 people are killed every day.
Yes.
And there's rapes as well that we think about. So it's really not an easy country to live in. So people don't have time to have all these rubbish squabbles on social media. And I mean, I just laugh at times. And you're right not to focus on them, because it's easy to think that this is the reality for South Africa, and yet it's not. And we're grateful for that.
Unathi, coming back to what I said about investments, if we cannot get investments, then we as South Africans, surely there's something we can do. I mean, the reason why I'm saying this takes me back to the Boer War back in the early 1900s. The wives, what they did to survive and bring in a little bit of income was selling cook sisters. Can you imagine selling cook sisters? And it actually brought them, it gave them a little bit of hope. Now,
you know what? You don't even have to go that far. You can even talk about Soltech, the technical school that Solidarity built just recently. I was reading that membership is just, I think it's like something like 10 rand or something per month.
okay.
It's not a lot of money that has made them to get the millions that they got, and they built the beautiful college that they did. Because if you think about it, there's we need a lot of colleges in this country where we can train young people properly. University is not a place for that. I know that when the ANC came to power in 1994, they sort of did away with training colleges. You can't find, you struggle to find a nursing college these days, a teacher's college. And you can see it in the results. Look at the nurses, the quality of nurses that we have today. You have people who came from university and came to work without knowing even the basics, because they never went to training colleges. So imagine if each community could do what Solidarity did. And we're capable of doing it. We do it every year, Jason.
Yeah.
If you can think, I mean, I've heard that the stockful industry in this country brings in billions of rands every year.
Yeah.
But think about what are we doing? For instance, let's say Kailicha, the women in Kailicha have this and men, some men, but it's mostly a women-run industry, informal industry. So think about the fact that there's billions every year in all communities of this country that can save money for December to buy, like most of them buy food in December. And I don't know who needs that much food anyway, but people do it. Imagine if we could change the thinking now, to start saying that, okay, we want a private school in Kailicha, we want a private school in Nyanga, we want at least one private school in every community in this country, we want a college, those kind of things. People have built, Black people especially, we have built things for ourselves before, because before 1994, we're basically on our own. So you had to make a living. You had to see to it that your family is thriving. So family was the next point. When you need help, you go to family. You don't go to government and say, I'm applying for a 350 Rand grant. There were no such things. And that's why I feel that as much as we got political freedom in 1994 as Black people, we lost a lot of our community. We lost a lot of our sense of family, a lot of a sense of humanity, basically. Because if you think about all these things that are happening in our township, the fatherlessness, the crimes, the rapes, and all these horrendous things happening in our communities, is because I think we thought that political freedom is everything, and yet it's actually a small part of who a person is. That right
Yes,
to vote,
because there is no.
that's a tiny part of who you are.
Yeah,
And so we lost all these things about that, the things that kept us going in difficult times in this country. So we just gave our freedom now back to the government. Build a house for me. Take my child to school. I mean, just now this week, the violence that happened at Wits University. People don't want to take responsibility for their own lives. People don't want to take responsibility for their own children. They expect someone else to do things for them.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because it seems that we are happy to disempower ourselves, because there's no empowerment
but that's what I'm coming down to.
taking your freedom.
What can we do to empower ourselves? And that's why I mentioned the word Cook Sisters. I did a little experiment a year ago, probably 2 years ago, with one of my guards that work for me, because I work in the security industry. So I gave him money, not much. I gave him 100 Rand, and I told him, go to the farm and buy little chicks. You know, these small chicks, you can pick them for 10 Rand.
Yes.
Grow them up, and then when they get to a certain size, and they'd sell it. And he did exactly that. And now he's got 3 cages full of these chickens, and he's breeding the chickens and he's selling it. That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Capitalism out there, that the majority of the people out there in the locations are not fully grasping. They can, but it's up to us. We need to empower people and teach them that. Capitalism, true capitalism, and starts there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to persevere, because a lot of damage has been caused in the last 27 years by a government that said, when they came to power, I'll give you a free house, I'll pay for your child's education, I'll pay for your food, that kind of thing. For me, that's the worst thing that could happen to Black people, for instance, in this country. I'm mentioning Black people because government thinks that BEE is exactly what Black people need. And yet we have seen, I mean, even Thabo Mbeki in 2007, he was already admitting to the failures of BEE. And nothing has changed. BEE has only created a few. You listen to Roulette Mbeki, and he will tell you that BEE has actually encouraged and promoted corruption.
Yes.
And BEE has only created a few millionaires who are not creating anything. These people get free shares. They don't work for anything. They don't know how to run businesses. That's why they sell. I mean, look at the mining sector. You'll have politicians who get shares and their connections from these mines. And immediately they sell them because they don't know what to do. They've never run businesses and they're not interested. Imagine if we could actually improve education in this country more than the money that we think, Black people need. Black people don't need handouts. I say this all the time because we've lived for centuries without handouts from a government. We've lived on our own. And the same with Afrikaners, the same with the English. Human beings are capable of taking care of themselves, basically. And the minute government takes away the freedom to work for yourself, and government says, I mean, when I talk about the minimum wage, I'm thinking of the low skill levels that we have in this country. And now people are crying, government saying that you can't employ someone and pay them less than 3.5.
Yeah.
And are you telling me that it's better to get 350 rands than 2,000 rands, for instance, just because government said that an employer is a criminal if they gave you 2,000 rands? Why don't you give people power to decide for themselves that it's better for me to go and work for that 2,000 rands than to sit at home and wait for 350 rands? And remember that this 350 is only for this period. Soon there will be no money left in the kitty. Because money doesn't grow on trees as much as politicians think so. I mean, if you think about Malema and every time there's a manifesto during the election years, and you read everything that he talks about will increase domestic wage to 5,000 rands, will increase security. We are in the security industry, and you know that you can't just do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your business, you'll run out of money in your business. You don't. But politicians can tell people these things and create animosity between employer and employees because they've never run businesses. What job that has Malema really done in his life? And he is now a millionaire because he just found himself in the ANC. He grew up there, and the positions that he had, like president of the Youth League, president of COSAS, all those were his stepping stones to where he is today. And that's how he's managed to live a comfortable life. But for general South Africans, you cannot say that, no, you cannot take 2,000 rands. Let people decide for themselves. No, I can take it because it's better for me. I mean, if you drive around townships, you'll see that there's quite when they say that unemployment is like 30% in this country. We go to townships; it can easily be 80% of the people in one township who are not working.
Agreed.
So how can you say those? So how can you say that those people cannot work for 2,000 rands because government has decided? You are killing the industries. You're killing domestic. There's a lot of domestic workers. People don't talk much about the loss of jobs in the domestic sector. Domestic workers, gardeners, because why the middle class people are feeling the pinch because there's increased taxes. There's the economy is not doing well, so companies are cutting back jobs. And you're not going to get an increase. A friend of mine was telling me, who works in the liquor industry, she was telling me that they didn't receive an increase last year. They didn't get bonuses, and they had to take a 10% cut.
Yeah,
and,
terrible.
In the private sector, they don't. You just get told this is what is going to happen, because at the end of the day, you're trying to save your business. So what do? You have to take drastic steps to at least you didn't retrench people. But sometimes you even have to retrench people. What can you do? Because the bills are piling up, and politicians don't seem to understand all this.
Yeah.
So that's the state that we are in. And one of the other things that we can do, we can just look out for each other. Look out for your family members who are struggling. I don't know. I grew up in a time when family was family, and you looked out for each other. Your family member couldn't go and stay on the streets just because they lost a job. Those kind of things. Let's go back to the basics of humanity. Basically.
Let's go back to the basics.
Let's go back to
Yeah.
Let's go back to looking out for each other. Let's go back to not depending so much on politicians.
Yep.
Because politicians are there for, it doesn't matter if it's the DA or FF Plus or ANC or EFF. Politicians are looking out for each other, and they're just there for themselves. And you obviously saw it now with the lockdown. Politicians were standing who were advocating for level 5. Let's go back to level 5 because people are not wearing masks. And yet they know that millions of people have lost jobs. So let's look out for each other. Let's take care of family, and let's take care of our communities. We should be the ones actually who are protecting each other. Like take for instance the farming community. We know that we cannot rely on police. That's why there's been so much farm murders in this country. So let's, if you are capable of, as someone you'll know better because you're in the security industry.
Yes.
If there's a way that one community of the farming community can find for themselves security guards to just keep an eye on things, because I think the fact that farms are usually far away from towns, and it's not easy to get access to them. But thugs know, because these people, I think they are properly trained. Some people will say, there's a lot of murders in this country anyway. So, but I think with farm murders, it's different. I mean, there's no one from outside Kailicha who comes to kill people in Kailicha. It's usually us who kill each other. But with farm, the reason why I think farm murders are different, it's that you have people who come from outside to the farms to kill people in that community. So that's different than to say, black people get killed too, so it makes sense that farmers would get killed. But it's totally different. I don't know of any country in the whole world that kills farmers the way that this country does. And you just wonder what will become of us.
Yeah, it is political driven, although a lot of people will disagree with me. And scarcity, the word scarcity comes to mind. It's got to do with market prices. There's a lot of reasons why it's happening. We can't justify it.
And since we can't rely on police and the state, we have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, well, look at the forensic systems. It's been down since last year.
Oh my God!
Dude,
I mean,
Ramon did a piece on it. Yeah, Ramon did a piece on it.
The demise of the SAA started with Jacob. Actually, not even with Jacob Zuma, because the ANC in 1994 politicized just about everything in this country, and the police were not spared. The soldiers, SANDF was not spared, and we see it's. I mean, Ramaphosa now is talking about professionalizing the civil, the government workers. And where are they going to start? Because it's the ANC that politicize everything in this country.
Yes.
The fact that you can't employ this one because they are white. You can't. They had to get rid of white engineers. They had to get rid of just about every white person in the government space. There's still a few that are left, but it's unfortunate because what happened is that you took out people who had experience in those jobs, and you didn't even bother with training the new people. So it's sort of we'll pay you all this money, but what's the point of paying people these fat salaries? We have thousands of government employees who earn over R1 million a year. And what value do we get as taxpayers? We get nothing, really.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say that when they took out all the people out of their positions, and that, you know, the NDR has got a lot of fingers in that pies, you know. It was for a reason. It was for a reason to try and turn South Africa into this communist or socialist state, as we are busy experiencing at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why we are where we are. And unless we vote this government out, I mean, whoever takes over, let's say in 10 years' time, it will be a mammoth task to try and change things around.
I don't know, Unathi, how do you feel about the next elections? Do you think the ANC still stands a good chance?
You mean the local government?
Yes.
Yes, they do, unfortunately.
Oh dear.
Not because people love the ANC so much, because of the fact that most people don't bother. It's even worse with local government elections. We normally have even less people voting. So the voter turnout
Sorry about that.
We can just finish.
I thought I had load shedding there for a while. I lost you there, but it wasn't. My power tripped my electricity, but we're back now. Okay, Unathi, let's finish it off. You've been an absolute pleasure to have on my show. I just hope people out there can listen in, and that we really need to do something to jumpstart this economy, and I believe we can. But it's entirely up to people like me and you that can jumpstart this economy. We really can.
And people need to take back their power, because we're always waiting for the politicians. I mean, look at the community of Harrismith. And since then, there's been a number of other communities. They just decided that, okay, Government is not willing to fix our roads. Government is not willing to fix the sewerage. Let's get people that we know in the community who can actually
You're
do
right.
this job,
You're
because
right.
people have a right to a clean environment, and we are the ones who are going to do it, because government is just not interested.
Exactly. We're the ones.
So
Only
so let's take back our power from politicians.
people like me and you, we can take back this country, but small steps at a time, of course.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
don't go. I just want to give it my closing, and then we can say goodbye.
Okay.
Then. Unathi, once again, thank you for being on the show. Absolute pleasure. My podcast is available on YouTube, BitChute, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast. There's 11 other platforms that's on there. Thank you very much, guys. I will see you next week.